morning, everyone. At the outset, I would like to thank the management of the Coimbatore Public School, the principal, and all the organizers for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to be part of this function on this momentous occasion, which is the 75th anniversary of our nation's Independence Day. Before I begin, I would also like to thank Mr. Chandrasekhar for the kind words that he spoke about me. Thank you, sir. I'm really humbled and honored once again to be present here and on this momentous occasion. I will celebrate the 75th year of India's independence. Since enough has been written and spoken on India's freedom struggle, I do not wish to be another speaker repeating the same thing. However, being a naval officer, I shall endeavor to give you a different perspective, a view in which we shall examine the strong linkages between India's independence and the freedom on the seas. Let me begin. My hunch is that since the navies world over operate on the seas and oceans, which is generally beyond the gaze of the normal landlubber, they seem to have less cognitive space in our conscious minds, and perhaps therefore resulting in giving these seafarers a little lesser recognition in nation building. So today we shall examine briefly how the navies have impacted our nation's freedom and continue to do so even today, especially India's independence and also our nation building. Though the subject is very vast, I shall keep it short and therefore summarize the same under broadly 5 heads or 5 points. Point number 1, India's maritime heritage. The country India has been naturally gifted in many ways. She has been bestowed with a strategic geographical location, a peninsular layout which juts into the Indian Ocean. The vast 7,500 kilometers of coastline, along with the chain of islands on either side of the coast, which are studded with numerous natural harbors, which generally open into calm and peaceful seas. She has been blessed with phenomenal natural resources, rivers, plenty of sunshine, monsoons, fertile land, and more than anything else, intelligent human beings. If we reflect back in history, India was an acclaimed rich and prosperous nation. The whole world was looking for us. Christopher Columbus sailed out from Genoa looking for a western route to India. He, of course, didn't find India, but did stumble upon the new continent, what we call today as the North America. Whilst Christopher Columbus didn't find the sea route to India, Vasco da Gama did a few years later. He reached India by going around the Cape of Good Hope. He arrived Calicut in May 1498. Point to note is that India at that time, a rich and prosperous nation, had a rich maritime legacy too. Our forefathers had been exploiting the seas for trade, for spread of matured Indian culture, a culture which believed in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which translated means the whole world is a family. However, perhaps we hadn't invested enough in our navies. Whilst the flourishing kingdoms of the Cheras, Pallavas, Cholas, Zamarins had long exploited the maritime routes in the Indian Ocean and beyond, the Europeans with stronger navies and with better technology muscled their way. They landed on our shores, and the rest you know is history. Therefore, young children listening to me, lesson number 1, India didn't lose her freedom till she lost the freedom on the seas. So therefore, we can say that we were actually conquered by invaders which came to the sea route. Point number 2, you must be wondering, so what now? Obviously, we shouldn't repeat the same mistake again. Today, as we celebrate 75 years of our independence, draw our gaze to other nations that got their independence almost the same time that we got ours. We shall see them still struggling. Look at the countries in Africa, South America, and why go far? Look at our own neighborhood. Pakistan, Myanmar, Bangladesh. For large periods of time, they didn't enjoy true freedom. There was no democracy there for many years. Their growth trajectory, unlike India, has not yet been able to get the upward incline. The Democratic Republic of India, on the other hand, has steadily grown in stature. India's Maritime Security Strategy of 2015 states that, and I quote, India's quintessential maritime character and vital geostrategic location are twin factors that define her growth as a nation and evolution as a cosmopolitan civilization. With rugged mountains ranges dominating her northern border, India finds the seas to be the prime means of extending her connectivity and trade links with her neighborhood and the world at large. Not surprisingly, over 90% by volume and 70% by value of our external trade even today is transacted by the sea. The last couple of decades has witnessed India's dependence on her maritime environment expanding substantially as her economic, military and technological strength grows. Unquote. It is to be remembered that a nation prospers, which is to remember that as a nation prospers and her population increases, the resources on land start dwindling. Therefore, all prosperous nations begin to look beyond their nation's land boundaries. In case of our nation, as I mentioned earlier, we have been bestowed with seas around us. The UNCLOS 3, which is an international convention, mandates exploitation of a 2.01 million square kilometers of exclusive economic zone by our own country. Very soon, another 1.5 million square kilometers of additional EEZ in the mid-Indian Ocean is likely to be ours to be exploited. All living and non-living resources such as fish, petroleum, natural gas, minerals, etc., which is within the EEZ is ours and nobody else is permitted to exploit these resources. Once we begin to exploit these resources in the most economical manner and sustainable manner, it will only augment our own land resources. That would help us to further catapult our growth trajectory. In short, we need to zealously guard our maritime resources and interests. And that brings me to point number 3. As the world has woken up to the abundant natural resources available at sea, the race for exploitation of these ocean resources has begun. This has the potential to result in conflicts. Not only do we need to safeguard our own natural sea resources, we also need to ensure the safety and security of our sea lines of communication through which our trade flows, trade and energy flow, and therefore the canvas is vast, the picture complex. We therefore need to plan, strategize and act. In short, by default, India has donned the mantle of ensuring peace and stability in the region. PM Modi has very clearly articulated his vision under the acronym SAGAR, which when expressed means security and growth for all in the region. Another measure articulated by our government is Atmanirbhar Bharat. The aim of an Atmanirbhar Bharat is primarily to become truly independent and self-reliant. We as a nation need to wean away from our dependence on other countries for technology, arms, weapons, etc., and have our own production. Towards this direction, the construction of an indigenous aircraft carrier, which you must have read in the media and seen on TV, is an example of our maturing technology. Yet, we have a long way to go. This is where you youngsters listening to me through the relay, the most important resource, I call you all the most important resource, the intelligent, skilled human resource of the nation, come into play. Since you will be inheriting an independent and vibrant nation, you need to prepare yourself to take forward this great initiative to even greater heights. You need to therefore prepare yourself to take on this responsibility. Remember, freedom didn't come free. Many of our forefathers made the supreme sacrifice to gain freedom which we enjoy today. Not only should you nurture it, you need to nourish it too. Therefore, the relevance of today's slogan, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. That brings me to the next point, point number 4. As you may be wondering, what shall we do now? The answer would be, well, not really much. You need to go back to basics. Basics which a pre-colonial India was famous for. True education, not just literacy. Pride in our culture, ethos, respect for our elders, parents, teachers. I think we did some of it today in the morning pledge. We also need to have respect to the women folk, the weak and the destitute. Compassion and empathy should be the main drivers of our motive and not just profit alone. A true rich nation is a nation where there are no beggars, no weak sections of society. Remember, poverty and lack of self-respect is one of the main reasons for violence, crimes, and manifestation of human weaknesses. A truly happy, healthy, and educated citizen result in the growth of a nation with a strong national character. A nation with the rich and affluent take pride in sharing that extra resource with those less fortunate. This is what our forefathers called karma. Remember, a good and kind action begets kind and good reaction. A strong nation, a strong national character lays the foundation for a truly strong and prosperous nation. And finally, the last point, point number 5, seizing the initiative. Despite the COVID-19 pandemic, the country has taken many steps to ensure that the engine of growth does not get derailed. Very soon, some of you listening to me would be passing out of the school. You would seek admission in colleges. You need to choose subjects of your choice, not the choice of somebody else, or on the perceived notion that subject X is better than subject Y, or subject A would enable you to get a job with a fatter pay package. Please remember, you should aim to enter into a field that enables you to become the master, where you can give jobs, that is, you are the employer, and not the other way around. The government has provisions for these ventures, such as Startup India, Stand Up India, soft loans from banks, etc., etc. Use these initiatives of the government. Remember, all big things start small. Dream big. Don't be afraid of failures. Hard work never goes waste. A determined person shall always find success. Spread this word across. For the uninitiated, and especially those who may like to know about the maritime world, since I'm a naval officer, of course I understand there is a talk thereafter, we could take on questions there. But just offhand, if I may say, there are many opportunities in the maritime domain. You could engage in research and development, shipbuilding, ship designing, port infrastructure development, maritime or marine tourism, etc., etc. Remember, we are fortunate to have such large oceans around us, which provides us oceans of opportunities. So therefore, young friends of mine, and including the parents listening to me, my advice to all of you would be, grab this opportunity with both hands. With that, I shall close. I understand some video clipping. I had given a video clipping. That video clipping, if it's already been shown, then we can skip it. But after that, in the question answer session later on, I'll be willing and happy to take on any queries that you may have with regard to navies, how to join the Navy, opportunities, job opportunities in the Navy, etc., etc. Wishing you all once again a very happy Independence Day. Let's resolve, all of us, that we should take this country of ours to even greater heights. Thank you. Jai Hind.